Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for clicking on my video again. Today we're gonna do one of my favorite things in the late fall, early summer time frames, and that is canning peaches. So I wanted to take you through the process today. This is what I do, this is my method. Some of it is adapted from the internet, some of it is what my mom did with us growing up. To start out, the first thing you want to focus on is prep. Prep is going to be huge. The more you do in setup and prep, the easier everything will go through the entire process. So in no particular order, I'm just going to take you through the kitchen and tell you what I have set up. So first we have a sink. It's clean. Counter, also clean. In the sink I have a colander that is going to be used to catch all the extra peach skins and peach pits that will be discarded during this process. The sink we're going to fill up with cold water. Once you peel and cut the peaches, I just like to have a bowl that's a little bit separate from the rest of everything else so they don't get lost floating around in the sink with the peach skins and things like that. So I just put them right in this bowl here. I usually fill that up with water so that they don't turn brown. The next thing I have are clean jars. You want to make sure that you sanitize all of your jars before. Even if you buy them brand new from the store, you might still want to throw them through a quick dishwasher cycle just to make sure that they're fresh and ready to go. Another thing you're going to want is a really sharp knife. This is my favorite knife in the kitchen. I use it for everything. This is probably going to be doing most of the work today. Coming over here by the stove, I have a canner ready to go. I already put water in it. And although I'm not ready to use it yet, I've already turned it on because it takes a while to get the water boiling. And when you put the jars in there, it stops boiling just because anything that is cooler than the boiling water will take the temperature down a little bit. It's gonna have to rise back up to that boiling temperature before you can set the timer. So I have my canner here, lid, this little jar holder thing. You put the jars in there and then you lower them down into the water when you're ready. I have another pan here of boiling water. This is kind of a deep pan. What I'm gonna do is put peaches in here for about 60 seconds at a time-ish, just to boil the skins a little bit. They come off really easily. What you're trying to do is boil the sugars underneath the skin so they release from the peach itself. And then it makes it really easy for the skins to come off. Behind the pan of boiling water, I have another small pan with the lids in it. I'm gonna be doing smallmouth lids today. These are sitting in water. I will eventually turn these on when I'm ready, but again, just having it prepped and ready to go, that makes it easy. All I have to do is come and turn it on right here, and then it only takes a few minutes for those to warm up. The next thing I have is my bushel basket of peaches here on the floor. I have them all stored outside in the garage, but I just take small amounts inside and leave them here on the floor so that I can at least do a couple loads before having to go back out and get more. After the peaches have been in this pan, I take them out with a spoon that has slots in it so that I'm not getting boiling water everywhere. I take them out of here and I put them into this bowl. This bowl I carry over to the sink, and that's where I peel them, cut them, take the pit out, things like that. So also right here I have another pan of water ready to go. I haven't sweetened it yet. This is gonna act as the syrup that will go in the peach jars. So I've got 7 cups of water measured out. And in the past I've done honey, but this year I've done a couple batches of peaches with stevia. I love using this stevia. This is super high quality. This is from Trim Healthy Mama. And then stevia naturally can be a little bit bitter, so then I'm just gonna put a pinch of salt in each batch of water. So because stevia is super potent, we don't need a lot. There's a measuring cup that comes, or a little measuring spoon that comes in here. It's 1/32 of a teaspoon, I believe. So I'm just gonna measure it out, and I'm probably just gonna put what might be considered 2 heaping in there. And again, because stevia has a little bit of a bitter aftertaste, just a pinch of salt is gonna take that away. I'm not ready to use this just yet, but again, having this prepped and ready to go is gonna save me a lot of headache. You want to be careful in the canning process that you're not messing around with the sugar content too much. Sugar acts as a preservative. That being said, I try to stay away from sugars as much as possible, so especially when canning fruit, I don't feel like I need to add a lot. Peaches naturally have a lot of occurring sugars in them. You could technically do this without adding any sweetener to the water at all. While those peaches are boiling, I'm gonna fill up my sink with cold water. Essentially what you're doing is heating the peaches up and then shocking them in the cold water so that they release the skin from the fruit and it peels off really easily. You see the skins are kind of just peeling right off. So once the peaches are in the water, you're just gonna take them and peel the skins off. Some of them might have wonky spots like this that don't want to come off. That's fine. I just leave them because I don't want to mutilate the peach too much, so I just leave them in the water. When I cut around the peach, I'll just cut a little slice out, and then less peach will be wasted. So now I'm gonna cut the peaches, and here's what I usually do. They don't always turn out this pretty, but these are pretty much the perfect ripeness. These peeled really well. So what I grew up doing is peach halves, but I have found that they do not fit into smallmouth lids, and that's what I've been using. So I've just been quartering them. So I find the little center here where it was attached to the tree. I cut the long way. So you're gonna see this natural like bump here. So I'm just gonna cut all the way around. I'm gonna come back to the top. I'm just gonna cut half. I'm not gonna go all the way around. And then I just twist my knife just super gentle, and it just falls right off. Now these are Red Haven peaches, which means they are freestone. So when you're canning peaches, that's something to keep in mind. You wanna make sure that you're going for a freestone variety so that they fall off the pit really nicely like this one. Oh look, sometimes you'll get this, cut it in half and the pit itself split. Here's one of the little bit of yucky spots, so you can see there I tried to not waste as much as possible. I just cut that little yucky spot off. And then what I do with these pieces that are not necessarily bad, but they might get smushed if they're in the jar. I always have an empty jar sitting on the counter. This is called the eats jar. My kids always devour this when I'm done. Anything that is not necessarily inedible, but just didn't look as pretty, or maybe is not big enough to withstand canning without being totally turned into mush, I just go ahead and put in here. I save this on the counter. When we're done, my kids just eat this. The next step is to fill the jars. You're for sure gonna wanna put a towel down just because it can get kind of sticky here and kind of wet. So I always put a towel down to protect my countertop. So here's the peaches we just cut and pitted. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and put them in my jars. You could see this process would be a lot more complicated if I did not have these ready to go. But I have them all cleaned and ready to go, so we're just gonna fill them up. So as you can see, this jar isn't totally filled up, but we're just gonna repeat that same process until all 7 jars are filled up. 7 quart jars fit into a water bath canner load. We're gonna go ahead and repeat all those steps until all 7 jars are filled up. I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place. Yes, this does take the entire kitchen. But I have all of my jars filled to the top. I kind of wiggled them a little bit to try to let anything settle so that we could fit as many in here as possible. You're gonna see some liquid in here. Where's the liquid line? Kind of right around here. Like there's some liquid in here. That's just natural juices from the peaches themselves. But I'm gonna top it off with the stevia water that I already made prior to this. I just threw it on the stove for a few minutes and let everything kind of dissolve together. So it's warm, it's ready to go. I'm just gonna top off all 7 of these jars. So I've got all my jars topped off here. You want to leave a little bit of room so that when you put the canning lid on, the peaches are not pushing up against the lid to keep it from sealing. You want to probably leave about a ½ inch of space as well, just for some allowance. But I will say that when you put your water in, some of the peaches are going to be snug together and there's going to be air pockets in there. So what you want to do is wiggle the jars around a little bit and make sure that all of the air bubbles have come out, because if they come out later, they're going to loosen the seal after they've been water bath canned. You don't want to lose peaches or have anything go bad because it came unsealed and you weren't aware of it. So just try to wiggle all the air bubbles out. You can see there's a really big air bubble in here, but I'm just going to wiggle it a little bit to try to encourage those air bubbles to come out. You don't have to worry about all of them per se, but just so that any of the big ones that you see are kind of wiggled out. Up next is lids, and I've put them in this pan and I've warmed them up. The reason you want to do that is because this little orange seal right here is actually sort of like a rubber material, and you want to warm it up because you want that to soften. So when you go ahead and put it on your jar, it's going to leave an indent and it's going to have a better suction. So when you put it on your jar, you want to make sure that this seal right here is a little bit warm. Now, right before putting my lids on, I dip my fingers in some clean water and I just make sure that the tops of the jars are completely clean of anything that would keep them from sealing. Sometimes you get little peach fuzzies in there, like peach pieces or anything like that. You just want to make sure that the tops of the jars are nice and clean so that you can get a solid seal, because something in the way could potentially keep that from sealing. And again, you don't want to discover months down the road that you have a jar that hasn't sealed and it's gone bad in your pantry or anything like that. So then what you do is you take this, seal down, screw your ring on top, and that one's ready to go. I will say that sometimes what you can do is find a tool like this. This I actually got at a farm store near us. My kids broke it, but it's supposed to be used for picking up screws that you lose inside of like an engine if you're doing some mechanical work. But I actually picked this up, and if your water's too hot, you don't want to burn your fingers, you can just pick your lids up with this. These bad boys are ready to go into the canner. It's worth noting that the color of peaches is just beautiful. Like, I love this orange, pinky, peachish color. I think it's so pretty. So I have my canner here and going. The water's boiling. This little basket thing is meant to hold all the jars that you put in here, and there are 7 spots. So we're gonna fill this up, and then we're gonna gently lower the jars into the water. Now that this is covered, I'm gonna wait until there's a little bit more of a boil in here, and then I'm gonna set the timer for 20 minutes. Okay, jars are done. I'm gonna lift the wire basket out and set it on the sides, and then I'm gonna take the jars out one by one and put them on a towel that I have sitting on the table so that they don't burn anything. It's also worth mentioning that this tool right here is definitely gonna be worth your money. I wanna say it was less than $5 at Walmart, but it has this silicone or like rubber green stuff on the bottom, so you can just grab the jars and lift them out and you won't burn your fingers. Now you just let them cool. You can see that these lids have a little bit more of a bloated look on their lid. Very center kind of bumps out rather than bumps in. That's just because of all the heat in there. As it cools, it'll make a popping sound and it will seal. Here's a couple jars that have already sealed. You can see they're a little bit more encaved in the middle, and that's because they are sealed, whereas these ones still have a little bit of that bloated look in the center. So as these cool down, they'll make a popping sound and their lids will seal shut and have a little bit more of that encaved look. Don't waste food, guys. The peach scraps go to the chickens. And in case you're wondering what that racket is, that's Mama Hen trying to get her babies into the coop. Good job, Mama.